Hey, hey! Happy Tuesday, North Central Washington. Happy Tuesday, Wenatchee Valley. We're here. It's Tuesday. Did I mention that already? It's the ninth day of February 2021. I'm Dan Kuntz. This is Wake Up Wenatchee Valley for a lot of our viewers. Election Day today. We'll get into some of the details before the show is over. It's a balmy 23 degrees outside of our studios, and that's going to feel warm by the time we get to the back half of the week, as we mentioned before. Very cold air, very dry air. We haven't mentioned the relative humidity, which is never very high around here much anyway. It's going to be way down there as well, and just a bunch of cold air coming our way. And we're lucky. So some places in the Great Plains are going to be like bone-chillingly cold, like you go outside for 2 minutes and you're numb. We're not going to be that cold, but cold enough for most folks. Details are coming up. We got some news to get to as well, some COVID news. But a stellar weekend for the Wenatchee Police Department. They caught a bunch of bad guys. We'll have that story coming up. We'll also have sports. Gonzaga beat BYU last night. Watched the game on ESPN. Nice victory. No real problems for the Zags. We'll talk about that when we get to sports and everything else that you need to start your day. And because it is Election Day, we're going to replay the interview I did yesterday with Chelan County Auditor Skip Moore. The biggest decision for folks in these regions is the renewal of the EP&O levy that is set to expire. This was approved by the voters by about a 44% margin 4 years ago. Well, now it's 4 years later. They just want to renew it. It's the same amount of money they've been getting for the last 4 years. Other school districts are asking for replacement EP&O levies. So that's those details are coming up. Let's see what we got here on this Tuesday morning. By the way, this is a milestone day, because starting today, we now have over 10 hours of daylight. The sun will be up at 7:15, just about 10 minutes from now. Sunset 5:16 tonight. That's 10 hours and 1 minute of daylight. We're gaining about 2 minutes of daylight a day, and I'm all for that. Not particularly warm yesterday. Monday's high and low was 34 and 24. Our normal high and low, 40 and 27. So we were a good 6 degrees below normal after a long stretch of very mild conditions. And it's going to continue to get colder as the week progresses, and the temperatures are going to bottom up big time on a Thursday and Friday and even into Saturday morning. So without question, the coldest temperatures of the year for the Wenatchee Valley are on our doorstep. Good morning to the valley. Camera 2, Megan's Choice. I don't know why I said 2. Waterville? Okay, move that one just a little bit. We use the Waterville camera. It's normally pointed maybe a little bit more to the south. She has it pointed almost directly to the west as we look down over Highway 97A and a little bit of the Ante-Ad area on your way up to Lake Chelan. You can see exactly what the demarcation line is for snow. Well, snow's not going to be melting now, I can tell you that much. Good morning to the Columbia River. Thanks for being there and being full of water. We appreciate it. Camera number 3. Beautiful shot of the Bavarian village of Leavenworth, right in the heart of downtown Leavenworth. Of course, they didn't do the tree lighting things this year, at least the gatherings, but people are still getting into the, I don't know, do you say the holiday spirit in the middle of February? Probably not. The Wenatchee River off in the background. Beautiful view of Leavenworth from our Tumwater Canyon camera. So that's zoomed in quite a bit, a few miles anyway. Camera 4. Let's see what's happening there. That's got to be Steins. Waiting for confirmation. Megan forgot. That's okay. It's Steins. Thank you for. I figured it's Steins, and there's 2 reasons. Number 1, you can plainly see the Cashmere Golf Course at the bottom of your screen, and you can see the fairgrounds. And number 2, you can see the equipment to your left. So we're looking back towards the Wenatchee Valley, which is off into the distance, as we look at the Cashmere Valley. On this Tuesday morning from high atop Steins Hill. I hiked up Steins Hill one time. It was a workout. I don't plan on doing that again. It's one of those things I can say, okay, I did it. I packed a sandwich, and I'm glad I did. 5 minutes after the hour, we mentioned it's going to be cold. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're going to be really cold. One thing that you might want to keep an eye on, if you don't park your car in a garage, it might be really hard to get the car up and running when you have overnight lows in the teens, and that can happen, especially if you don't drive particularly often. Now, you factor in wind chills, super duper cold, but we're lucky because we're not going to get a great deal of wind. Now, up north, in the Okanagan Valley, they are going to get some wind, and you have to factor in the wind chills there. But we're going to kind of miss the wind a little bit. We're going to be protected. Take a look at where you live. I live in Wenatchee, so I'll use that as my measuring stick for your forecast lows. These could change, but still close to single digits for the overnight lows for the Wenatchee Valley. Omak will be in single digits. Friday's overnight low into Saturday, 3 degrees in Omak, and they are going to have some windy conditions as well. On the right-hand side is the coldest temperatures we've had so far this winter for the Wenatchee Valley. It was January 23rd, we got down to 19 degrees. We'll be well below that. In fact, 19 degrees could very well be afternoon highs by the time we get to the weekend. In fact, from the National Weather Service. Happy birthday, by the way. We'll get to that. The National Weather Service celebrates your birthday today. Partly cloudy today, just a little bit colder than yesterday, not much. It was 34 yesterday. We're expecting right around 32 or 33 today. 18 for the overnight low tonight. We'll hover right around that freezing mark for the afternoon high on Wednesday with an overnight low of 18. And then that real push of cold Arctic air comes in Wednesday night into Thursday. You're going to wake up Thursday morning going, wow, it's cold, and it's going to be cold. Could even see a couple of light snowflakes, very little chance. We're not expecting any accumulation. It's going to be, because the temperature is going to be so cold and the relative humidity is going to be so low that it's going to be very powdery snow, not the kind of snow that sticks around. Look at the overnight low, 12, 16, afternoon highs only in the 20s, lower 20s on Friday and Saturday. Yep, and it's according to the long-term forecast, it's going to be kind of cold for a while, next 10 days or so. But, you know, it all counterbalances because we had such unbelievably mild weather for such a long stretch of time earlier this winter. I guess Mother Nature has turned the tables and decided, it's February, it's supposed to be cold in north central Washington, and so it is. All right, let's take you to the passes, shall we? The major mountain passes, anyway. Things are a lot better than they were yesterday at this time. They were dealing with some pretty nasty conditions. We're okay now. No advisories, no restrictions on I-90. Roadways pretty much bare and wet. The occasional snow flurry, it's not really sticking to the pavement. You're good on I-90. No advisories, no restrictions. You're going to see some snow on Stevens, but you'll also see some patches of asphalt. Traction tires are advised there. It's snowing lightly on Stevens Pass with some compact snow and ice on the roadway. Blewett's dealing with some snow. It's snowing fairly hard, we're told, on Blewett Pass, with the traction tire advisory up and running with some snow and ice on the roadway. So as far as I-90, no advisories, no restrictions. Stevens traction tires advised. Blewett traction tires advised. Light snow today, no significant accumulation. In fact, they're not going to get any significant snow. We're talking 2 or 3 inches that could really mess up your commute. That's not going to happen until maybe Thursday night or Friday. Between now and Thursday night, for the next 48 hours or so, light intermittent snow and really not a lot. And they don't have a lot of snow in the forecast at all, really for about the next 7 or 8 days, which is fine because they had feet of snow that came down over the previous weekend. 8.5 minutes after the hour, going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have your Tuesday morning news. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Life channel.
At Winco, we do everything to save you money. Winco.
Having a relationship with your pediatrician is so important. Feeling that sense of trust, that is priceless. I tell everybody about CVCH. I love it there. When I make an appointment, I don't have to take an entire day off. As a working mom, my life is really busy. Family time is everything. That's what we all work towards. And I feel like CVCH respects that.
We're back just about 10 minutes after the hour, 23 degrees with some high clouds, and that's pretty much what we're going to have today. High clouds, just about the freezing mark for the afternoon high today and tomorrow, and then really cold air begins to really make its presence felt Thursday and right into the weekend. Here are your headlines on this Tuesday. Wenatchee police had an unusually successful weekend, catching alleged car prowlers. In all, 4 people arrested in early Saturday and Sunday morning prowls. All of them were caught thanks to the items They are accused of stealing. Captain Edgar Reinfeld of the Wenatchee Police Department explains.
So we had some vehicle prowl incidents over the weekend, but unusually, we were successful very rapidly in resolving them, in great part thanks to help of community members. One was a set of them that occurred in the center part of town around Castle Rock Street, where we had a series of vehicle prowls around 4 o'clock in the morning that include loss of a debit card and some other items out of a vehicle after, at least on one vehicle, a window was actually smashed out. So that occurred early Saturday morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning Saturday. About 11 o'clock in the morning, got a report of the card being used at a local restaurant, and actually had video of the card being used. When we started working on that case, it developed further, and we were able to develop suspect information, and we're ultimately able to arrest a Huberto Chapa. Mr. Chapa is 43 years old and is a Wenatchee resident. He was arrested for a variety of charges, including identity theft, vehicle prowl, and some others. As we continue developing this case, we served a search warrant on a residence and recovered some stolen property in question, including a phone that was stolen as part of one of the vehicle prowls in this case. So Saturday night into Sunday morning was our second set of vehicle prowls we learned of, when a person called in shortly after 4 o'clock in the morning again to let us know that about 15 minutes prior, their unlocked vehicle was entered on a residence also in the center area, relatively near to Washington Street. They had noted 2 people were in their car, and they did not realize at first that they had lost any items. But a little while later, that we did find that they had stolen some things, including one item that was dropped and was recovered right in the area. A phone that was stolen in one of the vehicle prowls was turned back on and was tracked to a local hotel. Officers worked through that, developed a search warrant for a hotel room, and made contact at a hotel room there, where they made 3 arrests for vehicle prowl, including Zachary Paul Williams. He's 35 years old, most recently with an East Wenatchee address. Also arrested was a Kirsten Anderson. She's 26 years old with a Leavenworth address. Third was a Gregory James Cook. He's 34 years old with a Wenatchee address.
In other news, a 15-year-old girl had to be rescued after she slipped off a rock while taking pictures at the top of Mountain Home Road. This is outside of Leavenworth. The Chelan County Sheriff's Office said the teen slid down the hill more than 120 feet before she struck a tree, and that stopped her from falling all the way down to the bottom. Rescuers with the Sheriff's Office high-angle rope rescue team rappelled down to her, treated her injuries, and hoisted her out on a litter. A condition on the girl not available yesterday, but the Sheriff's Office on Saturday said the girl was in bad shape, but credited the rope rescue team with saving her life. A Wenatchee man faces possible charges of trafficking in stolen property after allegedly trying to sell wiring taken from a construction site. 51-year-old Jason Nicholas Corning, arrested last week by Wenatchee police, then released on a $10,000 bond. Construction supervisors at Grace City Church in Sunny Slope said somebody cut electrical cord leading to one of their on-site trailers early this month, and police said Corning later sold $80 worth of wire matching the stolen material at a local recycling center. Corning could also face charges of third-degree theft and malicious mischief. Okanagan County reported another COVID-19 death late last week at a senior home, and that brings the county's total deaths now from the coronavirus to 34. The latest death was a resident of Regency Harmony House in Brewster. Almost half of the COVID-19 deaths in the county have been connected to long-term care facilities. 12 deaths at a home in Tenasket after an outbreak in late November. Of course, today is Election Day. Chelan County Auditor Skip Moore says allegations of widespread fraud in the November general election almost certainly have no basis in fact. In fact, he told me on Wake Up Wenatchee Valley that election laws vary from state to state, but the systems are designed to prevent that sort of fraud from being alleged.
The statements that were made and the rhetoric that came around concerning voting in elections, I think a lot of the mistakes on both sides, when they start talking about elections, they get 2 different things tied together. What we'll see is, and what we have seen, is that the ballots were counted correctly. Recounts showed that when the recount was conducted, you count the pieces of paper, you look at the results, they matched. But that's one part of an election, and that's where everything kind of gets rolled over into one thing when people say it was fraudulent. I don't think there was a case in the nation of people miscounting ballots. I'm willing to discuss what ballots were in the mix. However, along those lines, every state has their own rules. Constitution allows for states to conduct elections, and they have their own laws. As long as the state followed their laws, accepted the correct ballots that should have been accepted, then we saw that the ballots that were counted, the results were accurate. Now we're getting to the discussion comes down to should a ballot have been counted or not. That's going to change from state to state based on rules. But to say a blanket statement that it was fraudulent or an election was stolen, it really does upset me.
And my complete conversation with Chelan County Auditor Skip Moore will air once again in the back half of this morning's edition of Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. Just a little rehash of what's out there on this election day. Voters in the Wenatchee School District, there's about 28,000 of those in Chelan County. They're going to be asked to renew an expiring EP&O levy that was approved 4 years ago. Two decisions to be made in the Cascade School District in the upper part of the valley. They want to do a replacement EP&O, and a second is a replacement capital levy for technical upgrades and security upgrades. The Orondo School District, you're going to be voting on a capital levy for technical upgrades, security upgrades, and they also want to fix the HVAC systems in their buildings. And the Ephrata School District, they're running a replacement EP&O levy, and there is one non-school issue, Grant County Fire District number 10. Out there in the basin, they want to make the commissioners go from 3 members to 5 members on the Board of Commissioners for Grant County Fire District number 10. Heads up on that. 18 minutes after the hour, Grant and Eric and Cal and, I don't know, people show up and go to work in the newsroom. It's an amazing thing to watch. With a preview of some of the stories we're working on, here's Grant Olson.
Thank you, Dan, and good morning. Coming up tonight on the NCW Life Evening News, our temperatures are slowly creeping down, and by Thursday, the coldest weather of the season will be here. I'll have your complete North Central Washington weather forecast, and Eric Granster will be in with a look at sports. That and all the day's news stories coming up tonight at 5, 6, and 10 on the NCW Life Evening News. We hope to see you then. Dan?
Thank you, Grant. If you have a news tip or you want to drop us a note and say hi, pick up the telephone and give us a call during regular business hours, the number that you see at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the Facebook Messenger app. You can email us directly, news@ncwlife.com, or you can go to our homepage, ncwlife.com. We populate it with all the latest information that you need to get you through your day, and there's a contact icon at the top of that screen. If you click on it, it's pretty self-explanatory. Going to take a break. Gonzaga, number 1 Gonzaga men remain undefeated. Sports is 1 minute away. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Life channel.
Levies are for learning and provide important local funding to support Wenatchee schools. Levies help fill the gap between what the state funds as basic education and the cost of all the programs, services, and essential staff Wenatchee School District provides our students. The state provides funding for most teachers, but levy dollars increase the number of staff in critical roles, like nurses, counselors, technology support staff, teaching assistants, and custodians. For example, the state funds just 1 nurse for our entire school district. Levy funding provides for an additional 6 nurses to support our students. These staff positions have continued to be critical in supporting the education, health, and well-being of our students and families during the pandemic. Levies also provide the essential funding to go beyond basic education and provide specialists and elective classes, technology, including laptops for students, and enrichment programs like AVID and HiCap. Extracurricular programs in our district, such as art, drama, music, and sports, are all thanks to the local levy. Our current levy expires in 2021. If approved, the 4-year renewal levy will continue the current levy rate that was previously approved by voters. It is not a new tax. This levy is a continuation of our community's commitment to our schools and investment in our children. The election is February 9th. Please remember to vote.
20 minutes after the hour, sports. You know, it's been almost a year since Gonzaga actually lost a basketball game. For the record, back on February 22nd of last year, they were on the road. They were ranked number 2 in the nation, and they lost to BYU 91-78. Well, how many of those Gonzaga basketball players remember that loss last night when they went down to Provo? I don't know if it provided any motivation, but it worked. Gonzaga knocked off BYU last night. They took the lead early on, never looked back. Bulldogs topping the Cougars 82-71. A game really wasn't that close. Jalen Suggs shook off first half foul trouble, led the way with 24 points. Drew Timme, 20 points, 13 rebounds. He's had 3 double-doubles now on the year. Andrew Nembhard added 15 points. Corey Kispert had 13. The Bulldogs 19-0 on the season, 10-0 in West Coast Conference play. The number 1 ranked Zags are down to just 6 conference games, and that's provided that their postponed games against Santa Clara and Loyola Marymount are actually made up. Gonzaga had his game with Santa Clara called off for a 3rd time. They were supposed to meet this Thursday, but the Broncos still have COVID-19 issues in their program. So next up for Gonzaga, they will be on the road to take on San Francisco this weekend. Gonzaga remains atop the AP and coaches basketball polls. Came out yesterday. Bulldogs, 55 first place votes in the AP poll. They remain right where they've been since the preseason. Baylor, 8 first place votes and are number 2. Michigan, Ohio State, and Villanova finishing out the top 5. Haley Van Lith's Louisville Cardinals, they dropped to number 3 in this week's AP women's poll. South Carolina is now number 1. They got 29 of 30 first place votes. UConn 2nd. North Carolina State, who beat Louisville last week, is number 4. Stanford ranked number 5. Oregon 11. Gonzaga up to number 17. Washington State's starting quarterback from last year has been suspended by the team. He was arrested by Pullman police over the weekend for DUI. Jaden DeLora, who started all 4 of Wazoo's games this season, pulled over at 12:13 in the morning Saturday after driving through a stop sign and traveling the wrong way on a one-way street. Now, according to an article in this morning's Spokesman Review, DeLora failed a field sobriety test but refused to take a breathalyzer. A team official confirmed DeLora's suspension from the team after the news was first reported by SWX. DeLora was expected to be in quarterback competition this spring with redshirt sophomore Cameron Cooper and Tennessee grad transfer Jarrett Guantano. A big week for determining high school sports, if and when they're going to get going in our region. Friday marks the end of the current 2-week data collection to determine if the North Central region in the Roadmap to Recovery moves from Phase 1 to Phase 2. Now, practice for sports is expected to start next week. That's regardless of where we're at phase-wise. But according to Wenatchee Athletic Director Jim Beeson, most competitions won't be allowed during Phase 1. There are exceptions: competitive dance and cheer, cross country, and girls swimming and diving. They will be allowed to proceed in Phase 1 because of their low-risk status, but Phase 2 is required if you want to play football, volleyball, and girls soccer. So there you go. Now, if the North Central region doesn't move into Phase 2 this week, the next round of data collection won't be inputted until the end of the month, and that's the same time games in those higher-risk sports are scheduled to begin. We'll just have to wait and see. Just 8 days away from when Mariners pitchers and catchers report to spring training camp in Peoria. Yesterday, packing day. Pitchers and catchers have their first workout on February 18th. Position players, they're supposed to be there on Monday the 22nd in the first Cactus League game against San Diego on February 27th. Bring on baseball. To the NHL scoreboard for Monday. A lot of games out there. Semyon Yarmolov made 30 saves. Islanders blanked the Rangers 2-0. That gives Barry Trotz his 850th coaching win. That's third all time. Columbus got over Carolina 3-2. Edmonton skated into Ottawa and beat the Senators 3-1. Toronto defended their home ice with a 3-1 win over Vancouver. Tampa Bay had no problems beating Nashville 4-1. And Arizona and St. Louis went into a shootout to determine the winner. Coyotes victorious there. And here's your schedule for today for you hockey fans. Slap on the skates and check it out. Just a friendly reminder, there's no crossing the border, so the Canadian teams play the other Canadian teams, and the American teams play the American teams. Just a quick reminder there, and those are just some of the games that people are playing. On this Tuesday, 26 minutes after the hour, happy National Toothache Day. Nothing is more uncomfortable than toothaches, but thank goodness for the miracle of modern dentistry, it's really not much of an issue anymore. So instead of doing the history of toothaches, I mean, what's the point of that? I thought we'd do the history of toothpaste. Toothpaste originally invented some 9,000 years ago by the ancient Egyptians. They were pretty good at inventing things. They actually used a sort of paste to clean their teeth. They were also the first people to actually practice modern dentistry. Good for them. The first modern toothpaste wasn't invented until the late 19th century. Colgate made the very first toothpaste in 1873, and then they figured, okay, if we're going to make toothpaste, you need to have something to apply it to your mouth. So then they came out with toothbrushes, which are made out of horsehair. Toothpaste and toothbrushes didn't catch on to the American public until they became widely affordable, and that wasn't even until after World War II. So we were a little behind the times there. Of course, things are a lot different today. Most people brush their teeth every day at least once, sometimes more than once. You want to move on to Today in History, Megan? Sure, we can do it. No, that's fine. I was going to do fun facts about teeth. I have permission from Megan. In the Middle Ages, I mentioned this yesterday, in the Middle Ages, people used to kiss a donkey to cure toothaches. That's why we don't live in the Middle Ages anymore. The ancient Mayans would chip out pieces of their teeth and replace the piece of their tooth with a gemstone. Okay. Mice teeth never stop growing. I think you knew that. That's why they have to constantly chew on something to keep them from like growing through their head. Dolphins have 250 teeth. And just a reminder that kids smile anywhere from 400 to 450 times a day. Get them to the dentist. All right, now we can do Today in History with Megan's permission. The election of 1824 was decided on this date in 1825. It took a while. Who got the most electoral votes in the 1824 presidential election? Andrew Jackson. Who got the popular vote? Who won the popular vote? Andrew Jackson. Who won the presidency? John Quincy Adams. This was one convoluted bunch of garbage. Yeah, no candidate received a majority of the electoral votes, which is required in the U.S. presidential election of 1824. So it went to the United States House of Representatives, who elected John Quincy Adams as president of the United States. He finally got the gig February 9th, 1825. So it was like, 4 months after the election actually happened. This is the only election in this country's history in which the candidate who had the most votes in the Electoral College didn't win the election. I just throwing that out there. I thought that's why they had it. I don't know. Let's see. Happy birthday to the Weather Bureau. That's the original logo. February 9th, 1870, what we now know as the National Weather Service went into operation, with President Ulysses S. Grant signing the proclamation, the resolution establishing the United States Weather Bureau, which was originally a department of the Department of War. For the simple matter is that they had all of these outposts scattered all over the states and all over the territories to defend the country, and so they figured the discipline of people in the Army would be the best people to actually do the weather predicting, and it was pretty rudimentary, as you might imagine. The Army would just communicate via telegraph. How is the weather in Des Moines? Okay, So the weather in Cincinnati will be what the weather was in Des Moines yesterday. It was mostly guesswork. They have tried to get rid of the Weather Bureau, now the National Weather Service, a bunch of times. The closest they came was back in 1983. The Reagan administration and the administrator wanted to, well, sell all of the agency's gear at auction to private companies. And then if you wanted the weather forecast, you'd have to pay for it. I kid you not. Private contractors would get all the satellites and all the radar and all the equipment that they use to, give you your weather forecast. They would buy it, and then they would do weather for profit. They actually floated this idea in 1983. The Reagan administration did. It didn't go very far. Thank you very much. Wartime went into effect on this date in 1942 in the early months of America's involvement in World War II. The idea behind wartime was to conserve energy resources during the war. The clocks would go forward 1 hour. We would have more daylight and ergo more production and war munitions and food and whatever. Again, man attempting to manipulate time. Doesn't work. We keep trying. We don't learn, but what do you do? And finally, February 9th, 1964, 57 years ago today, 73 million Americans. Now remember, this was 1964. This was 57 years ago. That's a lot of Americans. 73 million Americans tune in to the CBS television network on Sunday night to see the new group from Liverpool called the Beatles perform on The Ed Sullivan Show. One of the largest television audiences ever. 73 million people. The Beatles played 5 songs. There you go. Birthdays. The most underrated founding father, Thomas Paine. Outside of Benjamin Franklin, he's my favorite. The works of Thomas Paine are must-reads. Of course, he wrote Common Sense. Common Sense, when it was published in January of 1776, there wasn't really a lot of talk of revolution among the colonists. By the summer of 1776, after Common Sense has been read by almost every person in America, we were ready for a revolution. It's a landmark, maybe the most important book in American history, written by Thomas Paine, called Common Sense, and then The American Crisis. He was the guy who came up with the name, the United States of America. But Thomas Paine also got some people pretty upset at him. When Thomas Paine died in New York City in 1809 at the age of 72, he was forgotten in obscurity. He was broke. 6 people went to his funeral. Thomas Paine, a terribly underrated American patriot, born in the state in 1737. Speaking of big-time dudes, William Henry Harrison, the 9th president of the United States, born in the state in 1773. He was the very first president to die in office. 33 days after he took the oath of office, he keeled over pneumonia. He spoke his inaugural address in a freezing cold rain. He didn't wear an overcoat or a top hat or gloves. He caught a cold. The cold became pneumonia, and then he died. He was, at the time, the oldest man ever to become president, so there was probably that. He was also the last president who was a British subject. He was born in 1773, 3 years before the Declaration of Independence. He had 48 grandchildren and 106 great-grandchildren. William Henry Harrison. Most historians don't rate his presidency. He had the job for a month and then died, so, And finally, Carole King, the most successful female songwriter in the second half of the 20th century. 118 songs that she wrote or co-wrote ended up on the Billboard Hot 100. That is phenomenal. I think everybody in the Western world has a copy of her 1971 classic album, Tapestry. If you don't buy one, buy 2 in case one breaks. Going to take a break, and then Mike McNaughty is going to come back. He's got an opinion, and we're going to replay my interview with Chelan County Auditor Skip Moore on this Election Day 2021. It's coming up. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Live channel.
Hi, my car's making a funny noise.
Not a problem. We'll take care of you.
Global Car Care's technicians are ASE Master Techs and well-versed in the more refined methods of vehicular diagnostics.
Number 3 piston and rings have a slight loss of compression, down to 108 pounds. Your transmission is slipping. You're gonna need a service.
Looks like you all set.
These guys? They're good.
Oh, and your spare is flat.
Global Car Care, Wenatchee's top shop.
How much are you paying for adult, family, or assisted living? Epladolin Retirement and Assisted Living offers one-bedroom apartments for one affordable price. Their rates are all-inclusive, no nickel or diming or sudden increases, just one set price. You or your loved one will receive good food and excellent care in a relaxed, home-like environment. Stop on by for a tour to see if the Epladolin family is the right choice for you.
Family owned and operated Epladolin Retirement and Assisted Living in Cashmere. Affordable care.
Hey, this is Mike Mad Dog McNaughty, and everybody's entitled to my opinion. Now, okay, 2020 sucked, no doubt about it. With this new year, any new year, people look forward with hope for a better future. But really, what does a better future depend on? Whereas a new year tends to provide a definitive, motivating starting point, the truth is, even if 2021 is not the better year we all hope it's going to be, how good any time is in our life, that's up to me. You know, COVID-19, political instability, and the chance of eroding economy, things like this are external. And it's not stuff like this that defines me, but instead, it's how I react to both the good times and the bad times that determines the quality of my life. So what if 2021 is not as good? Who cares what it has in its story? Bring it on. This is Mike Mad Dog Magnotti, and that's my opinion.
At Winco, we're working to save you money. Every aisle, every department, every day. Winco.
Mary Maids of Wenatchee has been professionally cleaning and sanitizing homes and businesses in North Central Washington since 1998. Mary Maids uses commercial-grade cleaners and viricides. Mary Maids has implemented additional safety and sanitation protocols. They are strictly following CDC guidelines for the safety of their clients and employees. For expert help with cleaning and sanitizing your home or business, call or look up Mary Maids of Wenatchee to schedule your free estimate today.
We are back on Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. Tomorrow, Tuesday, February 9th, is Election Day for a great many people in our viewing area. Whenever we have an election day, I endeavor to bring in our local auditors. Didn't need to bring in Thad Duvall this year, the Douglas County auditor, because it's just not a lot of decisions to be made in Douglas County. But for you folks in Chelan County, you got some EP&O levies and some replacement capital levies and a few other things to decide on by close of business tomorrow. And to talk about that, the auditor of Chelan County, our good friend Skip Moore, is back. Hey, how are you, my friend?
I'm well. We got through November. So.
You got through November. Let's talk about that, because this is the last time I saw you. In fact, I had you and Thad on.
Yes.
On Election Day back on November 3rd. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I went back and looked at the tape. Both you and Thad were thinking right around an 85% turnout, which I thought was a little much because we had an 80% turnout in the 2016 general election. 86.2% turnout. You just about nailed that right on the head, Skip.
Every now and again, I guess I get lucky. Well, yeah, you look at it, and then you looked at how much was going on nationally, and you could just see it was amazing. I mean, the turnout. It's nice to see people getting involved. That's the important thing. I hope we can continue to see that type of participation because it's important. A lot of decisions are made by whomever gets elected. And especially this is an off year. The scary part is being an off year elections, we're going to have school boards and city positions up in the fall. And you know what? Those are actually, I think, the most important offices as far as impacting you and I locally on a day-to-day basis.
As Tip O'Neill once said, all politics are local, and you're right. The decisions that really affect your life on a day-to-day basis are almost always made from the local level, be it a school board or a city council or a county commission, that kind of deal.
Certainly, and we got the fall coming up, so I'm hoping that we can see some spillover or spillover is not the right word, continuation of that citizen engagement, because that's important, quite important.
Over 50,000 registered voters in Chelan County and 43 8,634 ended up casting their ballots for an 86% turnout. How many people had been long time, and if you don't know the answer, I apologize for asking the question. How many people had been eligible to register to vote and never did, and finally said, I'm registering so I can vote in the 2020 general election? My guess is you probably had a few people come in and say, I think I want to now get involved.
Yes, we had the number. I don't know the exact number, but I do. I spoke with enough folks that were that had come into the office, and finding out that, well, this is the first time I've ever voted, and you're talking to someone who's in their 40s or 50s, which I found rather interesting, but it was polarizing. I mean, it was truly a case where people had a feeling that they wanted to cast their ballot a certain way, and they wanted to participate. So yes, a lot of folks that I think the citizens are starting to see that yes, their vote does count. We're still working on trying to get away from or get the understanding that yes, they do count. We are counting your votes, and it has an impact. So I think that's helping it, or was it some of the driver behind the turnout?
It's no secret there were a number of national politicians and public servants who were, I don't know what the best way to put this.
Yes.
Skip terms like stolen election and fraud and stuff like that. People questioning the integrity of the election process, and I've known you for a long time. I'm going to speculate that that really ticks you off because that's one of your biggest. I mean, that's a huge.
It is. It is
part of your very fiber.
That part was very disheartening. That's being nice. It just really did upset me. Ticked me off. That's even being nice. But yeah, it was the statements that were made and the rhetoric that came around concerning voting and elections. I think a lot of the mistakes on both sides, when they start talking about elections, they get two different things tied together. What we'll see is, and what we have seen, is that the ballots were counted correctly. Recounts showed that when the recount was conducted, you count the pieces of paper, you look at the results, they matched. But that's one part of an election, and that's where everything kind of gets rolled over into one thing when people say it was fraudulent. I don't think there was a case in the nation of people miscounting ballots. I'm willing to discuss what ballots were in the mix. However, along those lines, every state has their own rules. Constitution allows for states to conduct elections, and they have their own laws. As long as the state followed their laws, accepted the correct ballots that should have been accepted, then we saw that the ballots that were counted, the results were accurate. Now we're getting to the discussion comes down to should a ballot have been counted or not. That's going to change from state to state based on rules. But to say a blanket statement that it was fraudulent or an election was stolen it really does upset me.
It upsets me too, and I don't do this for a living, but I have a vested interest in this. Let's before we move to the upcoming election tomorrow, and again we're just dealing with Chelan County, and we'll go through what would be on your ballot depending on where you live, of course, and where you're registered. I went online earlier last week and said, what's the status of my ballot? I live in the Wenatchee School District. I have to cast a ballot, or am asked to cast a ballot for their renewal of their EP and O levy. And I like the new reporting procedure. There's something that caught my eye, Skip, when you look back and to make sure that your ballot has been received at Skip's office and counted. Let folks know what it is.
Well, the big thing is that we track it through, and we're updating daily as we receive those. So there's no surprises, and we want a voter to know what's the status of their ballot, because real time, let's say there was an issue with your ballot and that you failed to sign it, or that in our signature checking, and to remind everybody, yes, we do check every signature. Some other states may do it differently. But in Washington State, every signature is checked, and it's checked by a set of eyes against what's on the ballot and what's in the system. But if we run into issues, right off the bat, we can trigger notification to you. We send out a letter immediately. Within 24 hours, we've got a letter in the mail to let you know there's an issue. And this is all back to giving a person an opportunity to correct an error. Washington State, we do our best to ensure the vote counts. That's the key.
These are, none of these are bond issues. This is the first thing we need to address. Bonds are, of course, an entirely different scenario. It requires an X amount of voters to vote, and it requires a 60% supermajority. These are levies. Cascade, you got two of them. A replacement EP&O levy. These used to be called M&O levies. Now they're called Education Programs and Operations levies. So Cascade School District wants to replace one with another. They also have a capital levy for some specific programs. Again, Cascade School District. Manson is doing a replacement EP&O levy for the Manson School District. And the biggest school district in North Central Washington, Wenatchee School District, wants to renew their already existing EP&O levy. Yes. I got all that correct, right?
You got it all right.
Again, you have to live within the physical confines of these school districts. So if you go, hey, I never got a ballot, well, that means you live outside of either the Wenatchee School District, the Cascade School District, or the Manson School District. There are some myths and misconceptions about how many people need to turn out and that kind of stuff, because we're dealing with EP&O levies and capital levies and not bonds. Skip, please straighten this out for us, please.
Yes, it's every district has a difference. Even the districts within the state have different sets of rules. And based upon the type of district and the law that's in place, determines what is considered, when something's considered passed or not. Right now with levies and schools, the passage for a levy to pass is a simple majority, which is 50% or to pass or fail. To pass, it has to have 50% plus one ballot to have passed. That's a simple majority. Since these are all levies, they are in that category. There's no state, there's no there's not a number or validation number, which is the number used to determine X number has to participate at all. This is just a simple majority, which gets to people need to be involved to let their voices heard. Otherwise, it's very conceivable that you can have a number, you can have less than half the people in the district vote yes, or excuse me, you could have less than the half participate, and they vote yes or no. So now you're down to 25% of the eligible voters in that district are determining what this other 75% get. That's why turnout is so important.
Well, let's talk about turnout. The last time there was we'll use the Wenatchee EP&O levy. The last time they're asking to renew the levy that is already up and running. They're not asking for more money, just the same money that they've been getting for the last 4 years. In that election in February 4 years ago, there was a 44% turnout. Again, you have to be a registered voter in the Wenatchee School District. There's about 27,000 of those.
Right around 28,000, yes, sir.
About half the registered voters in Chelan County live in the Wenatchee School District boundaries. Your prediction for turnout for Tuesday?
Well, based upon some sneak peek, I've already been able to see some turnout thus far. It looks like we'll probably get right around to maybe 40%, maybe. Right now, we're looking at 30%.
That's what you have now so far?
Yes, so far at this point. Okay. So, based upon what ends up in the drop boxes, we usually get a little good push right near the end, and we're coming right up to that. So, I'm hoping we get to 40%. It's unfortunate, but at times that's how this business works. In the off-year elections, and here we are in February, and we even get phone calls at times that say, "Oh, well, I'm glad you finally got my November ballot to me." And no, ma'am, that's your February ballot. We're already voting on something different now, so that's fun.
One of the new things that the auditor's office has when you go and check your ballot, you can download as a PDF or a Excel file, is how you got your ballot, whether it was put in a drop box or whether it was mailed, and I think that's a neat little deal.
We're trying to get as much information out because there is concern. People are concerned, and rightfully so. How is this process working? Where are the ballots coming from? And the more more information we can get to the voter will help us in the process, because I mail ballots out to everybody that's eligible. I assume they get them. Well, if they don't, I need to know, as well as if voters have moved and changed their address. We need that update too. This gives them an opportunity for voters to see where it came from, the stats, or where they're coming from, how their ballot was returned, and if it makes sense as to what they did. Because if you were to mail your ballot back, and then I was to show that it came back to me via Dropbox, you'd be concerned. You'd say, well, I put it in the mail, but you show Dropbox. Why is that? We're just trying to show more of the control. Excuse me, something in my eye.
That's okay.
More control of the process and how we're moving the ballots.
I liked it. I think it's a great addition. And as I mentioned before, it's super easy, and it's sorted by last name of registered voter. So if you're not sure if Skip has your ballot yet for Tuesday's election, go to the website, Skip's website. You can download either way, the PDF or the Excel, and it's alphabetical. And you just go down, and there's my name, Kuntz, and you got my mail, and you got my ballot, and my brother voted, my sister voted, and my mom, that kind of deal. It's all there. Then I can get a hold of my siblings who haven't voted yet and say, hey,
get on the phone.
Get off the schneid.
And we do get calls about that. Folks will get a call and say, I just received a call from someone who says I haven't voted yet. How do they know how I voted? Well, then there's a discussion. They don't know how you voted. But it is a public record of who did vote. And that's important, because to trust me, I need to show you all the people that participated and then what the results were. If I were not to show you who participated, and then I just told you, here's the numbers and here's how it went, well, where's the integrity in that? I want to show you all the way along, or we as election officials want to show all the way along how it works, so you know what's happening. And if you didn't vote, you're going to give me a call and say, wait, Skip, I didn't turn a ballot in. Why is my name on that list? That gives us an opportunity to figure that out as well.
Which is an extremely rare occurrence.
Very rare.
Who's
Very
getting
rare.
who? The bottom line is, unless you choose to share that information, the only person who really knows who or what you voted for is you.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
That's all there is to it. Again, I just want to recap this real quick. The Cascade School District, you got two things on your ballot, Proposition 1, Proposition 2. One is a replacement EP and O levy, replacing one that's set to expire. The other one is a specific capital levy for security and technology and stuff like that. In the Manson School District, number 19 is Proposition 1. It is a replacement EP and O levy. And in the Wenatchee School District, it is a renewal of a levy that is due to expire. That is the decisions that you will be making. If you do not live in those geographic areas, you didn't get a ballot. We are in the legislative session right now. Skip, what are some of the things that you and your 38 other colleagues in Washington State legislation that you're hoping to get passed, or are you keeping a close eye on as it affects the auditor's office?
Well, right now, there's not a whole lot of legislation that the auditors are pushing, or we have no legislation to change elections law. We've worked well with that. There is legislation that's been submitted by various groups and individuals to change things. However, our position is, I'm not in the position of pushing policy. I'm in a position of talking about whether we can or can't do something. The process-wise, there's a bill to go to ranked choice voting. There's a bill to take us back to go back to poll site voting.
No, let's not go there. Sorry, I just editorialized.
No, I understand. I can do either one. I can't do both.
Yeah.
That's the difficult part when you're running two types of elections. But all of these legislations boil down to policy. And we, as elections administrators, don't want to get into the policy. The days of, there used to be a time where you put a white stone in or a black stone in a bag, and that's how the vote was conducted. If the legislature wants to pass along and have me do that, I will do that. Because that's the law, and I will do the best I can at it. So policy-wise is their decision. But I will be happy to chime in if they say, we got to go to poll sites. Well, if we're going to do that, let's talk about the machines are going to have to be purchased, the sites. Let's think about in the future if we're still wearing masks, all these things. So policy is one thing, implementing something else. And we get involved in that side of it and say, okay, yeah, well, we can do this, but are you willing to write a check for it? Or have you considered these certain things? Otherwise, policy, another thing we're working on is to finally get in state law a codification of recording requirements across the state. Each auditor, there's 39 of us, have the ability, well, 38 an elections director, but have the ability to, we can interpret the law unto ourselves based upon what our prosecuting attorney and what we look at. We're trying to get that codified so that across the state, when you go to record a document, you're going to pay the same fee. It's going to be called the same thing in every county in the state. That for us is a big thing, which will make a big difference for the public.
Vote, I'm the editorializer here. Vote by mail works. As Skip mentioned, they check your signature with the human eye. It's not a computer. It's almost impossible to manipulate it in any way. It increases turnout. It makes you a more informed voter because you can sit down and fill out your ballot over the period of days as you do your homework on candidates and initiatives. Vote by mail works. Let's not turn back the clock there. One more question, Skip, and I'll cut you loose because we're running out of time. It's a question I ask this time of the year. This is, again, the school districts are the only thing that's out there. Who's paying for this election? Who's footing the bill?
The school districts themselves. Every jurisdiction who has something on the ballot will get an appropriate or an apportioned cost of the election. We throw the costs in for this, so we sent out about 34,000 ballots to cover these 3 districts. What we do is we have a formula, we throw all the costs in, staff costs, ballot costs, all those things are thrown in one big pot. We come up with a basic formula, price per voter. It gets allocated back to the district based upon how many people they have in their district.
So the Wenatchee School District is paying for the bulk of this. Cascade, not so much, and Manson probably the least of all.
Yes,
Right,
it'll work
gotcha.
out, and when it all shakes out, you'll probably see Wenatchee School District will probably pay close to 60% of this. The other 30% will be divided up between Manson and Cascade.
Skip Moore, and again, you can save Skip and his crew, and they're all great people who work in the auditor's office, not just the elections department, but everybody who works in Skip's department. You can save them a lot of headache about your ballot if you're confused by going online to their website and seeing if they got your ballot. It's super easy to do. Only if you really have a significant concern should give them a call. But give them a call if you do, because they're pros there. They know what they're doing. And Skip and his crew go out of their way to make sure that if you want to vote and you're eligible to vote, that you can do it. It's as simple as that. Skip, happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day. We're there.
Skip Moore, Chelan County Auditor. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. We'll be back.
At Local Myth Pizza, we believe in real food, freshly prepared with only premium ingredients. Our cheeses are imported from Italy. Our sauces, dressings, and even our sausages are made in-house fresh daily. Featuring Northwest craft beers and 30 Chelan Valley wines and ciders. Family fun and amazing food. Eat local, drink local, and be local at Local Myth Pizza.
Come see why Sunset Magazine says you can't beat Local Myth Pizza.
Highlander Golf Course is proud to announce their 2 new state-of-the-art full-swing golf simulators with over 80 courses of virtual golf to choose from year-round. Or try their Laser Shot simulated firearm program, or gaming with football, basketball, and much more. Enjoy Highlander food and drink service from their full-service bar and grill in the comfort of their simulator room. Call the Highlander Pro Shop to book your time at 884-4653. That's 884-4653.
About 45 seconds left. Let's give you a weather forecast. National Weather Service says, yeah, it's going to get cold, and it's going to get really cold. Partly cloudy today, just about the freezing mark for the afternoon high, 18 for the overnight low. We do it again on Wednesday. Wednesday night's overnight low, again about 18, and then here comes the big blast of Arctic air. Light snow possible, not enough to really stick to the ground. Only 24 for the afternoon high on Thursday. Overnight Thursday night into Friday, 12. And colder still in many locations, especially out in the Columbia Basin and to the north of us. Get ready. It's still winter. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.